Okay, I'm just checking for audio, so, okay. So, hello Maya TV, my name is Alethea, I'll be your host today. And my guest today is a filmmaker, comedian, writer, and so many things, and we're so happy to get to talk to him and learn about where he grew up and his past projects and what he has in store for the rest of the year. So, Ron, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me. Always nice to collab with fellow creatives in the area. I'm just down the road in the 90731, so
Yeah.
good to be here.
Okay. So, Ron Placone has many things, but you mostly are a comedian, which often starts in the theater, and that started for you very young, right?
Yeah, I mean, I liked theater as a kid, and when I was in grade school, we actually did Shakespeare plays, which was really cool. I liked those a lot, and I was in those, and then I was a theater kid in high school, and then I also played in little garage bands in high school. So I feel like in a way, stand-up was sort of a combination of those two things, because it's like, it sort of combines, sort of being in a band, like you're on stage either by yourself or with a small group, and then there's a theater element too. So I guess it's sort of eventually morphed into that.
Yeah. Was it Midsummer? Was that one of your Midsummer Nights?
Yeah,
I feel like that's the gateway.
there you
comedy
go.
play.
It,
Yeah.
it was Midsummer, and
Yeah.
I played Thisbe.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was the person that.
Is it
Yeah, I was Thisbe, and
Yeah.
that was a blast. We had so much fun with that scene. Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah, that's a
So,
fun show, especially for like
it
if you're
is.
young and a high school student. So, okay, so you talked about how you were playing in bands and you were doing theater, but I feel like comedy has a whole other confidence that you need to bring to it. How did you think that like? How did you come about with this confidence to be able to go on stage and tell your own jokes?
So I was not like super into stand up when I started doing it. Like I didn't know a whole lot about it. I didn't know a ton of comedians, like even famous ones. I didn't know that it was a job, if that makes sense. I didn't really know much of anything. I was just about to graduate college, was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I got really into radio, like talk radio and stuff like that, and like morning shows and stuff like that. And I thought that was what I wanted to do. And one day I was driving around my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was with my dad, and there is a comedian who is no longer with us named Ralphie May. And Ralphie was on the radio in Pittsburgh, and I'll try to make it brief, but basically the Pittsburgh Penguins, the hockey team, my favorite hockey team, still. And at one point, there was a chance that they were going to leave the city, and everybody was very not happy about that. And Mario Lemieux, who still owns the team to this day, was going to be the final decider on whether or not they left the city. And even though people were very not happy with the idea of them leaving the city, you could not say a bad thing about Mario Lemieux. He's basically the Pope in Pittsburgh. But Ralphie May was on the radio, and he was so funny, and he was kind of roasting Mario. And it wasn't mean, but it was just so funny that everybody was, like the DJs were trying not to laugh, but they couldn't resist. They were just laughing. And it was just so infectious. And I just thought it was so cool that he just made an entire city laugh at something they thought they weren't allowed to laugh at. And that was really, really cool to me. And I, again, was just a kid in my early 20s, and I thought, I don't know what that was, but I want to do that. I don't know what he just did, but I want to do that. And again, I didn't even know stand-up was, I thought Ralphie May just had a radio show in a different city. Like, I didn't even know. But eventually I found out, oh, he's a stand-up. And so I decided I want to try that. And not to make this kind of morose or whatever, but years later I was based in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where Ralphie was based. So we all kind of knew each other. It's not a very huge scene. And some friends of mine knew that story, and they were like, dude, you got to tell Ralphie that story. He'll think that's awesome. That's such a cool story. And I never got to. Like, I never got an opportunity to, like, be like, hey, man, by the way, when I was younger, there was this thing you did. And then sadly he passed. So, I was never able to share that story with him. But
But it made an impression on you because you did go to school for something else, right?
Yeah, I studied music business when I was an undergrad. And that was pretty cool. I got to intern at a record label in Nashville. And then years later, I wound up living in Nashville, but those two things aren't related. Like, there was a lot that happened to me in between those two things. But it was cool because I learned a lot about just entertainment in general. Because at the time, I mean, I was a college kid, and I don't know what Music Row is still like now, but back then, Music Row was just literal houses, and there was just creative things going on in them. Like, one was a publishing house, one was a record label, one was like a radio and records thing, one was a magazine, one was Sony, and I would literally just go up and knock on the door and be like, I'm an aspiring college kid. Would you want to teach me about your job? And I would do it towards the end of the day. So a lot of people were actually, they said, sure. They were happy to just, hey, it's 4:30. I'm kind of overworking today. I'll help this kid. And that's my good deed for the year. So I got to learn. I got a lot of like free information from people in entertainment. I can't do that now as like it'd be weird if I just showed up. Can you teach me something? I'm a 30-something comedian. But as a college kid, I could totally do that, and that was cool.
That was amazing. So, when you started doing like your own work, where did you draw inspiration from? Do you have a persona, or do you like to really draw from your own personal experiences to make your jokes?
A little bit of everything. I mean, I talk about my life. I talk about, the things around me, and I do observational stuff, and then I do stuff that's going on in the world, political stuff. I mean, I talk about everything. My Fringe show last year, it was called Balding is Punk Rock, which is a reference to one of my jokes. But it's also, I coined the show a survival guide. So it's basically, this is what's going on in the world, and this is how I cope with it. So we talked about everything from what's going on in the world around us to my coping mechanisms, which is music, comfort food, cats. I'm a big cat person. So that was basically the concept of the hour. And it's evolved since. It premiered in 2023, and I'm still kind of tweaking it.
Yeah, it seems though you did tell me about your band days, right?
Yeah.
So, do you think that also gave you confidence to continue on after stand-up?
I think so. I mean, it's not quite the same as being a stand-up, but there's a little bit of similarity where you're in like kind of a dark nightclub and you're kind of up there and the spotlight's on you.
What they react to.
Seeing what they react to,
yeah.
and sometimes if crowds aren't really into it, it can be a rough night, and when they're really into it, you're on top of the world. So yeah, there's parallels, and I have a lot of musician friends just randomly, so we always compare and contrast. The advantage I have is I don't have any equipment I gotta worry about.
Yeah.
I don't have to lug the gear like they do.
It's just you.
It's just me.
Yeah. That's okay. So, what is the hardest thing about being a comedian, and what is like your favorite thing about being a comedian?
My favorite thing is I don't have a boss, and I get to kind of make my own schedule, and you get to do a ton of creative things. Like at the end of the day, the easiest thing to describe is like, okay, I'm a comedian, I'm a writer, but like it leads to making films, it leads to making albums, it leads to being involved with other people's projects, it leads to writing projects, it leads to, all kinds of cool stuff. And I'm a variety is the spice of life type guy, so I really like that. I celebrate that. So I guess that's my favorite part. My least favorite part, I guess I would say the instability of it. But I feel like everything, there's instability in like everything.
Yeah.
So I feel like, well, you might as well just do something you love, because if things are going to be unstable anyway. Like if I wasn't doing this, I would have been an academic, because I went to grad school, and after I finished my master's, I was like, I'm going to, try to be a comedian, and it worked out, but yeah, I mean, that's so unstable, so like, oh, I'm glad I am where I'm at.
The pandemic really showed us that it didn't matter.
The pandemic showed us how fragile society is, and so you gotta just roll with it. You gotta be like water. You gotta like water has no one true form. It adapts.
Yeah.
I'm listening to The Art of War for the first time. I've never dove into it before, but yeah, I'm diving into it now. So.
Yeah. what have been some of the places that you've performed that you really, really liked? Anything like notable that happened at one of your shows?
Well, the Edinburgh Fringe was really cool. It was my first time doing the festival, and for anyone that doesn't know, that's basically the biggest arts festival in the world. There are literally 3,000 shows going on. I'd wanted to do it since I started stand-up. I finally got there last year. And that was amazing, and that's sort of the direction I want to go with my stand-up. I like working on hour shows. I like doing kind of conceptual hour shows. So that's the type of stand-up I want to do from now on. Like that's just the stand-up I want to be. Which is also kind of cool, where it's like, even if you do stand-up, there's different lanes you can kind of occupy within that broader genre. So that was really cool. And then I can talk about stuff I got coming up.
Yeah,
So,
I would love to,
yeah, so I made a film called Left at Wall.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, going off with the pandemic, right? It had to do with this. I don't know if you can see it, but we'll link it somewhere.
Yeah, so what I'm doing this year, which is different than anything I've ever done, is I'm doing some shows where I do a short stand-up show up front, then we screen the film, and then we do a Q&A after. So I have a couple events coming up with that, like on March 22nd, I'll be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I'm going back to my hometown and doing a show, screening and Q&A. Los Angeles, our big LA thing is April 14th, which by the way, you're all invited as my guest. But we got a big LA one, April 14th in Burbank. And then we're going up to Idlewild, California, because they have a really cool indie movie theater up there in the mountains. So we're going to be in Idlewild, California on June 8th. And then in September, I'm going out to the UK. And we're doing a weekend in Sheffield with the film. We're doing a screening in London. And I'm still working out all the details there. But we'll be in the UK in September. So.
That's really exciting. And really special that you're doing a hybrid performance-based, intro to your film. And okay, so I don't know if you saw it, but it is you, right?
That's me.
You starred it, you directed, and you also wrote it. So what's that like? Can you tell us? Because that's quite a big task to take on, right?
It's my first feature, so when I came to LA, obviously I started, writing a lot of things, and I've written for some shows before, and I was writing scripts, trying to get them picked up and trying to get different writing gigs. And I got a friend of mine who is not like a formal mentor to me, but it's kind of like an informal mentor to me. He said to me, you need to make something, like bigger than just a sketch or something. You need to make something. And in 2021, the GameStop incident happened with the GameStop video game store and the Robinhood stock situation. And I thought that was a very peculiar thing that happened. And I thought, I should write about this. So I decided I was going to write a fictional movie. Our movie is fiction. It is not the real story. It is a comedy. It is loosely based on the incident. But I wrote a feature script based on that, and then we made a trailer. And that was all in 2021. Our trailer happened in 2021. So the incident happened in, I believe, January. Our trailer was up by August. And it took a long time to build the team, to raise the funds, to do all of that. But eventually, that all happened, and we shot the movie in 2023, and then did a soft premiere in November of 2023, and now we're releasing it to the universe. I'm gonna hopefully eventually get the most elaborate digital distribution it can get. And first, we're doing a festival and screening run. But it was a rush. I mean, it was my first feature. I learned a lot. I definitely made some mistakes, and like you do. But that's all part of the journey. It's like you'll make a million mistakes your first time, and then hopefully you only make 500,000 the second time, and then hopefully you make less and less and less, and you get better and better. So,
where did the initial idea come from? Because from going from live shows and writing your own stuff to actually, getting the crew and everything, like where did that hunch come from? This needs to be a film.
Well, I wrote something when I wrote that script. Again, it was like my mentor told me, you gotta make something. So I wrote that script with the intention of, okay, I could make this on a phone if I had to. You know what I mean? Like I kind of wrote it with the intention, that there's no car crashes or anything like that. You know what I mean? And the locations are incredibly simple. Our most complicated location is a bar. So I wrote it with that intention in mind. It's a narrative film, which is another kind of, I don't want to say cheat, but it's kind of a cheat, right? Like doing a narrative film, and I'm the narrator.
Yeah.
So, we took all these kind of, little methods to make it a film that didn't require a ton of resources to make, which was great.
Yeah, it's incredible because you could have easily just made it like a one act or something, right?
Yeah,
And you decided to take the leap and get it into your film festivals, which is a whole other world and distribution and everything. So
a new world for
Yeah.
me too. I mean, it really is a new world for me, which I feel like that keeps what we do exciting. Like it's like you're entering new worlds all the time.
So I know you're busy with all the festivals coming up, but do you see yourself performing anytime soon? In between then, anything coming up for you in terms of you performing again?
Yeah,
Besides the film.
Oh yeah. Well, those are my main things
Yeah.
because I'm gonna be opening it. I mean, I don't get to do a full hour of stand up because
Yeah.
it would just be too long of an evening
Yeah.
for everybody. But
Yeah.
but I still get to do a decent length
Yeah.
set, and then I'll do a
Like, do you
Q&A.
need a break from this work to do something a little different, or are you just so focused on it right now?
Right now, I'm really
Yeah.
focused on this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll still do like just local stand-up shows around town whenever I'm asked, and just kind of focus just on stand-up that way. And probably in the UK. I mean, again, we're still finalizing that tour. I'll probably have a couple shows that are just stand-up shows, and I'm not having to worry about the film or whatever. But a lot of my touring output this year is based on the film and doing screenings, and then also whatever festivals the film, because there's festivals all over the world that I'm still waiting to hear from. So like it could take me any number of places. So this year is very heavily focused on the film, which is different for me, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So with this film, say depending on reception, things like that, and it's your first feature, are you looking to make another one, perhaps a sequel, or to jump into another feature of something else, like a new script?
It's funny, we do, I do a couple virtual screenings of the film, like just on Zoom and stuff, and the last one we did, somebody was asking about a sequel. But no, the story is told. I'm not going to do a sequel of this. My next thing that I want to make, I mean, well, first of all, I have a vertical web series called Frank Azzurri that people can find online. Just follow me, you'll find it. And then the next thing I want to do is actually I wrote what was meant to be a contained film. It's one location, and there's a two-person cast because it's basically a couple, and it's just from their perspective of when they're at home. So I wrote that with the intention of, well, I can shoot all of that at my place. It's basically a two-person cast and then one voiceover, so 3 people. As I kept reading it, I also realized this could also, full circle to the theater, this could also take place on stage. So I did a table read with the people who I want to be involved, both of who said we're down. So I hope to launch that on stage, and then from there, make it a contained film. And I think it is a very, 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 very dark comedy, but some say it's not a comedy at all, it's a drama. Call it whatever you want. In fact,
just come see it.
just come see it. If it's easier to sell as a drama, by all means call it
Let
that.
the people
Someone else can
talk,
make those decisions. But it is very dark, and so that, I'm hoping that's my next production. It's called Termination Fee, which I guess is a pretty dark title already.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a dark comedy, maybe just a straight up drama. But I'm excited about it, and that's gonna be my next production.
Okay, really cool. So we have that in store for you, your feature, and at the film festivals. You had a screening in Pedro, is that what you said?
San Pedro,
Yeah.
that's where I live. That's where the entire movie was shot. A lot of our cast and crew, not everybody, but about half was like South Bay as far as cast and crew goes. And so it wasn't even the final cut of the movie, but it was sort of the soft premiere cut. So it premiered in San Pedro, and then more recently we were in the Da Vinci Film Festival, and still waiting to hear back pretty much from the rest. I mean, I applied to a bunch throughout 2024. We'll see what happens.
And you did mention that you filmed with a lot of your friends, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, part of the reason we were able to do the whole show screening Q&A thing is because most of the cast is comedians.
Yeah.
So, and there's some really amazing comics that are in this movie. It made scheduling not the easiest because some of these comics are among the busiest touring comics literally in the world. I'm not one of them, but some of them were. So planning the shooting around when they were available was not easy. I'll give a shout out to my DP Jessica. She was the whole crew was absolutely amazing. But Jessica is a very very efficient DP, and it really fit my directing style very very well. She set up shots like that, so we were able to accommodate a lot of the comic schedules and be like, look, we're gonna. I mean, my one buddy, my buddy Eddie, who plays the bartender, Eddie Pepitone, hilarious guy. He crushed it as the bartender. I promised him, I'm like, Eddie, it's only going to take a day, it's only going to take an afternoon, and we had Eddie wrap before lunch. Eddie actually stayed because he wanted his free sandwich. And I told him he should. I'm like, dude, stay for lunch, I got a sandwich for you. So he was wrapped before he was even ready to leave. So I took pride in that, to be mindful of people's time.
Speaking of timing, it is really important with comedy to get timing right. How does it go into film, because you have all these cuts and this editing, right? So it's a whole nother thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is, and then for our movie, I mean, in a lot of ways, there was a lot of improvisation that happened. There was a lot of like riffing that happened, and there was a lot of like, I mean, it was written, but we really took the scenes in a different place. And Gareth Reynolds, the actor who plays my brother, he's one of the best improvisers I've just ever seen in my life. And so with him playing the role he was playing, which was basically the likable antagonist, he really just there were just so many great riffs and so many things that made it into the final cut. So that was a lot of fun. I mean, it probably made editing a little hard than it would have been if it was just a straight like line by line thing. But it's the movie we made.
And you had fun making it too, right? So
It was fun, yeah. Being on set was fun. We shot it in 6 days, which for a feature, I've been told that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'll take it. It wasn't easy to make it happen in 6 days, but we planned it out so that we were able to just use the locations as efficiently as possible and shoot the whole thing in 6 days.
That's incredible.
And we broke it into it was 3 and 3, and we broke it up that way because of touring schedules.
So now that you are officially a featured filmmaker, right? So do you have any advice for someone who is now on their first, or perhaps like wants to be a comedian like you, or do something in that vein?
Ooh. Well, I mean, I think whatever your creative endeavor is, work at it. Like always be thinking about it every day, and really dedicate yourself to that craft. As far as filmmaking goes, I would say it's really worth it to just learn a little about everything. One of the things I did during the pandemic was I just took an online film class. And I'm by no means an expert. I'm certainly not ready to DP, but I know a little bit. I know some basics about lighting. I know some basics. It made me a better director, learning some of those technical skills. So I would say familiarize yourself with something like DaVinci Resolve or a different editing tool of your choice. Familiarize yourself with the basics of audio. You don't need to be an expert. You're not going to be able to wear every hat, but know a little bit. And I would also encourage people to pick a couple lanes to specialize in. Like a lot of people that they want to be an actor, they want to be and that's great. I mean, I do acting stuff too, and comedy stuff and writing stuff. But sometimes when you have other things that you do, maybe you're a colorist, maybe you're an editor, more work will kind of fall in your lap, especially these days where people are kind of having to wear different hats, especially on an indie project. I mean, I look at Left at Wall, some of the people in the cast, they ended up doing some different things just because they were able to do it, and I ended up needing it, so they ended up getting paid more.
Yeah.
I mean, not that indie filmmaking is a gold mine for anyone,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I feel like try to learn a little bit about it all so you know what you're doing when it comes to building a team, and then see if you can specialize in different things.
Yeah. So that's really good advice, and hopefully, going forward, we get to see more work from you now that you're learning more and more. And so we're gonna look out for for Left It Wall, right? Because you're
Yeah.
being in a couple film festivals.
Yeah.
You said you have a website as well?
RonFlacone.com. That's my website. You can get, if you're in Pittsburgh or Los Angeles or Idlewild, or if you're in the UK, although that hasn't been, we haven't finalized all the details there yet, but you can get tickets at RonFlacone.com. If you're in Washington, D.C., there's a screening on March 18th. I'm not actually going to physically be there.
Yeah.
They're just screening the film. But if you're in D.C., there's a free screening on March 18th of my film. And the rest of it, yeah, RonFlacone.com for all information.
Yeah, okay. And then no socials? Do you have socials?
Oh yeah. I'm Ron Placone on all the platforms. YouTube, Ron Placone. Twitter, Ron Placone. Facebook, I'm Ron Placone Comedy. TikTok, Ron Placone. Threads, Ron Placone.
Yeah.
Blue Sky,
Good, you got your name.
Ron
You
Placone.
got your
That's the one cool thing. There's only 12 Placones in the world. I'm related to all of them. So
Okay.
Ron Placone, I just had it on lockdown.
That's
It made it
perfect.
easy for me.
Okay.
So I'm Ron Placone on all the socials.
Perfect. I think we covered everything, right? We got your screenings and everything. So
Yeah.
it was really lovely to have you, and
Thank
we're
you.
so grateful for everyone who's been watching. Look forward to your film, and hopefully we get to see more from you. So, all right, thank you so much. Stay tuned
Thanks
for more.
all.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.